Let's go back down to our team in KZN, in particular in Pinetown. Siphamandla Goge, back to you. I know we're keeping an eye out for the president. He's expected to arrive soon, but education an issue as well, because schools have been closed as a result of the flooding, and I understand you have the KZN Education MEC, if I'm not mistaken.
Indeed, that is the case. I can tell you that the arrival of the minister in the presidency, Mondli Gungubele, signals the fact that President Cyril Ramaphosa is on his way to Pinetown in KwaZulu-Natal. Minister Gungubele has just walked inside where he will be meeting with provincial authorities. More and more authorities and officials from the national government are coming to KwaZulu-Natal. The focus is in KwaZulu-Natal, particularly in eThekwini, which is the economic hub of the province, but the damage and destruction, devastation is all over the province of KwaZulu-Natal. Ilembe district, Mgungundlovu district, Mzinyathi and Ugu districts are some of the hardest hit areas. But most importantly, schools are badly affected by this. Gwazim Shengu is the MEC responsible for education in KwaZulu-Natal. MEC, thank you very much for your time. It does not look good for the people of KwaZulu-Natal and your schools in particular.
Well, it is bad, as we're correctly saying. So far, the reports that we have received indicates that 104 schools have been affected in terms of infrastructure, but we are expecting that number to rise because there are areas that are still inaccessible. So we don't know the state of our schools in those areas. We are also losing teaching and learning time because yesterday over 500 schools could not open. In fact, today we will be issuing out instruction that in all those areas where the damage was suffered and where their schools are still inaccessible, we must not take a risk of opening schools at least until Tuesday, so that they allow us time to make some kind of interventions, because there are schools where we need now to deploy mobile classrooms so that teaching and learning can take place.
Human life too has been lost. You're talking about learners and teachers that have passed away due to these floods. Are you able to give us the latest updated numbers and figures?
Well, so far the reports indicate that there are only 2 learners that were washed away in the district of around the area of Msinga when they were crossing the river back from school. Those are the 2 learners. One body has since been recovered. I think the other one, the search is still going on, and we do want to extend our deepest condolences to the family of the deceased.
I see your colleague here, Finance MEC in KwaZulu-Natal, Nomusa Dube, has arrived. That's the person you will be going to asking for more financial resources, and you will have to go to the National Treasurer because you don't have money to rebuild the damaged infrastructure at schools.
Definitely, and what makes things worse is that we're still sitting with a backlog of more than 400 schools that we have not been able to repair. The schools that were damaged by storms in the previous years. So the current 104 that were damaged yesterday is adding to that number of just over 400. And the number may rise, as we have indicated, that the more we start getting access to certain part of the schools, we will then be able to make assessment. But it's going to be a very tough period for the Department of Education ahead.
Have you quantified how much you will need in total to rebuild these schools?
No, we haven't yet. The engineers are now starting to access the schools that are now accessible, just to make sure to assess the damage as well as quantify the numbers and exactly how much we're going to need. But we are expecting that it will run into millions, judging from what has been happening in the past.
Very difficult period from COVID-19, now these devastating storms and floods, while you are still trying to catch up with your learning and teaching.
It's difficult times indeed, and as we know that Department of Education has always been complaining that we are not funded in terms of or in proportion to the mandate and the challenges that we have. Many people may think that we get the lion's share in terms of the equitable share insofar as the province is concerned, but 90% of that simply goes to salaries, and the rest has to be dispensed according to the rest of the competing needs. So we are indeed under strain as a Department of Education.
It doesn't help also that KwaZulu-Natal is vast and rural. Which districts have been badly affected by these storms, apart from eThekwini, where everybody is concentrating?
It is Ilembe, King Cetshwayo, Mgungundlovu, as well as Uchugela. those are the most districts that are affected in this case.
Thank you very much for time, Baba. That is Gwazim Shingu, who is the Education MEC in KwaZulu-Natal. As we see more and more provincial and national authorities arriving here in Pinetown ahead of President Ramaphosa's arrival. I see Finance MEC in KwaZulu-Natal, Nomsatu Bengube, is still busy. We'll try and get a word with her because she's the one, of course, who has to play a leading and major role in terms of securing. Let me see if we can't be able to get Nomsatu Bengube. If we still do have time, you will indicate to me. But if we're out of time, we'll have to take it back to you in studio for now.
Siphamandla, I think what we'll do for the moment, see if we are able to take your guest as well, just so as we remind viewers as well that what we're expecting while Siphamandla waits to see if he can grab his guest. Sipha, you go ahead and try and organise that we're going to have the President arriving in Pinetown a little bit later, meetings with the Premier, Sikhla Zikalala, Kokta ministers arriving as well. It's all got to do with what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, but more importantly, as I'm sure we'll hear from Siphamandla in a moment, is where is the money going to come from to get this? Just the very broad stroke rough estimates of the cost involved in this damage from the flooding in KZN is already running into the billions, and that's going to be, I'm sure, going to be money that we have to find from somewhere. Off the back of Siphamandla, let me come back to you. The July unrest last year, this is not a province that is flush with money. They're already struggling with money, aren't they, Siphamandla? Do you have your guest with you?
Sure. Well, we are still trying to get her. She's still busy. But let me tell you that it's not helping. Perhaps I'm going to ask my colleague Bongam Kize if we can just unmount the camera and walk towards her to see if it's possible to get a word with Nomsatu Bengube, the MEC responsible for finance and treasury in KwaZulu-Natal. I'm not sure if we can just get a word with her for now. She's still busy with someone. But let me tell you that it doesn't help that in KwaZulu-Natal the province is still reeling with the issue of the 2021 July unrest, and they will need more resources to deal with that. And it doesn't help also that these floods are frequent and they happen almost every year in KwaZulu-Natal. And I can tell you that all the resources will be needed to ensure that they need to try and fix the province of KwaZulu-Natal. Sawubona MEC ninjani? Siyaxolisa ukukuphazamisa. We are so sorry to disturb you. How are you, MEC? You are live on eNCA. You are the one who will have to go to the National Treasury and ask for resources to rebuild after these devastating storms. Where is the money going to come from, MEC?
Well, we first of all wish to send our condolences to all the families who've lost their loved ones, but also say that our government is doing everything to reach those communities that have not been reached due to accessibility of those areas. We continue to do the mop-up, and we are also talking to the national government and mobilizing resources, including the private sector resources. We are already talking to the National Treasury. The National Treasury has taken a stance that they will be able to mobilize the resources for us. And they've also taken a view that says if the disaster happens, resources have got to be released immediately, not like before where resources are released long after disasters have happened. So what we are relying on now is the sector departments to give us assessment, reliable assessment, so that we can then ensure that National Treasury does release those resources so as to ensure that the infrastructure is brought back to normality.
Indeed, MEC, this is devastating, bearing in mind that the province is still trying to deal with the 2021 July unrest, and these floods are becoming a common occurrence in KwaZulu-Natal. Surely the economy of the province will take a further knock after this.
Indeed, we are going to take a knock, no doubt about that. But we are hoping that we will recover, albeit it's going to take time, quite honestly, because this is a setback from where we want to be, given that we still have areas that do not have infrastructure, let alone that we've got to go back now and do the areas that already have infrastructure in terms of now redoing those that already had infrastructure that have now been damaged that we need to replace.
Have you quantified how much you're going to be asking for from the National Treasurer?
Not yet. At the moment, we've not been able to quantify it, exactly due to the fact that there are areas that are not accessible. But the teams are on the ground doing exactly that.
Siyabonga kakhulu.
Siyabonga. Azwang hijack.
Nomsadube Gube, Finance MEC in KwaZulu-Natal, complaining that I've just hijacked her. But anyway, it was very important that we do get a word from her, because she's the one who's going to be liaising with the National Treasurer in terms of asking for financial resources to rebuild this province of KwaZulu-Natal after this tragedy.
And Sipamane, that's why you're the award-winning journalist, because you hijack what needs to be done. Questions have to be asked. We need the information. Sipamane Gorge, one of our team members down in Pinetown, expecting the president to arrive there in a short while from now. We're back with